Studies Institute, Ministry of Housing in Egypt.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, my name is Doaa El-SHERIF. I am Professor of Environmental Planning and Urban Management in Egypt. I am an architect and urban planner, and I would like to express my pleasure to be part of this conference. I was really wondering in the beginning how many architects are presenting in this conference. I thought I'm the only one, but my colleagues, the previous presentation, they give me some comfort because I'm not the only one. So I was having some questions regarding my participation, but my presentation is on advances in environmental preservation and the role of solid waste management. Of course, we have an urbanizing world and we have many challenges of urbanization. And if we look at the Earth planet on the year 70, we had 37% urban areas and 63 rural. But if we look at the year 2000, the urban areas became 47% and the rural decreased to be 53%. It is expected that by the year 2020 to be 56 urbanization and 44 rural areas. This means that more than half of the world of the planet will be urban settlements. And this puts a lot of pressure on the urban or the urban settlements, the cities. This is of course a result of immigration from rural areas to cities, and of course due to the natural growth of the cities themselves. We consider the immigration is a negative growth, however the natural growth is a positive growth. This is, I think, all over the world, and a specific focus for the developing countries, and Egypt is one of them, and is suffering a lot from this phenomena of urbanization, with a lot of people leaving their villages and settled in the urban areas and cities, and putting a lot of pressure on the urban services. Today I'm going to talk about one of these urban services, which is solid waste management. If we talk about a general framework of solid waste, we have the heavy growth rates of cities and urbanization and the fast growing population. All these points are putting a lot of pressure on the urban service, all kinds of urban services, and we focus today on solid waste, and also of course on the people who are responsible for these services. And the economic prosperity also of the people living in cities, they are now more able to buy and to consume and to produce waste. And also there is a big changing in production and consumption patterns if we compare it with some few decades earlier. And also the quantities and composition of solid waste is all every day changing. If we look at this quantity and components of waste, and there are some factors affecting this, of course at the city level it differs from a district to district, and it depends on the average of income level, and also the population and density of the district, and the social behavior and awareness of the people living and their awareness of cleanness and how to behave in a good way regarding the waste, and also the climate. If it is changing from season to season, if it is cold or hot or windy, the solid waste management changes depending on that. And also if we have an industrial production or governmental institutes in the district, and also the market's availability. All these factors affect the quantity and components of waste, and of course it reflects on the management itself. We have different kinds of solid waste. We have the household waste, commercial waste, governmental institutions, industrial waste, and construction waste. And the management of the process itself of management, it has to differ depending on the kind we are dealing with. Here we are going to talk about the municipal solid waste, which is the housing waste. There are some planning and organization related problems to solid waste, and of course in the developing countries we can see these problems arising a lot. There is an ad hoc planning instead of strategic future planning. Also, there are too many tasks for one municipal department, and solid waste is only a small part of their tasks. The lack of adequate financial resources, the equipment sometimes we export from developed countries with too expensive and often high technology based, and the people they are responsible for that, they cannot fix them when it is not working. So, and of course there are low priority for solid waste, especially in low income areas, and too little recognition of dealing with waste recovery and recycling activities. We will talk about this later. And too little recognition of the existing of an informal sector. Most of the governments are dealing with the tasks of solid waste management alone, and they are ignoring the informal sector, which my paper focuses in the last part on this informal sector and the importance of taking their role into consideration. If we talk about the environmental problems related with solid waste management, we have the leakage, of course, from the accumulation of the solid waste. It can cause the surface and groundwater pollution. The fires can be set to garbage, which results in smoke and air pollution. Clogging of drains results in flooding and water pollution. Spread of diseases, especially risks to the waste workers, the people who are dealing with waste, and the pollution and methane gas risks at the open dump sites, the bad smell, and the aesthetic pollution. Keeping in mind all those problems, I would like to start talking about the solid waste management process. But before I go to that, I have to give an idea about the previous approach to solid waste management. If we look at the old dictionary, the definition of waste, it was defined as useless or valueless material. This was the perception of waste until the 17th of the 20th century. And at that time, the management of solid waste process was only collect and then dispose, because it is useless and valueless. We don't need it, so we have to collect and dispose it. So the management was only 2 steps. However, the Environmental Protection Plan in the UK started to define the waste material as scrap or unwanted material. So if it is unwanted for some person, it may be wanted for another one. And another definition, it is any substance which requires to be disposed because of being broken or torn. Why not we can fix it? Contaminated, why not we clean it? Or otherwise spoiled. So after the UK definition, the researchers around the world started to define the waste in another way. Started to be defined as the material, either organic or inorganic waste material, that produced from different human activities, and they have lost their value in the eyes of the first owner. So they may have second and third owner. So here came the idea of the sustainable solid waste management, which means that the waste was giving value. So we need the waste, we don't need to dispose it directly. So we started to have the idea of waste management hierarchy. So we don't need only to collect and dispose. We need first to prevent the waste production. This was by the product designing and packing, because a lot of companies, especially after the Industrial Revolution, started to overpack the goods. So when we use it, we have a lot of waste throwing this package. The second step was the reduction of the negative impacts of waste, and then the reuse of the recovered waste in current form, or recycling it and composting or recovery of materials as input to new products, and then energy recovery by incineration, and lastly is the disposal in sanitary landfills. So we started to have this hierarchy like that. We started to think about avoidance of waste and then minimize the waste, because we cannot have zero waste at all, and then recycling and reuse of some kinds of waste, treat of some other kinds, and then dispose the materials which we cannot recycle or reuse or treat. What happened in reality is the avoidance is a very small percentage, and the disposal of material is having the biggest percentage. But our desirable, looking forward to sustainable solid waste management, it is the opposite. We need to have the avoidance, so we need to have the cone like that. We need to have the avoidance, the biggest, and the minimization, and then the dispose is the minimum. Then, if we need to talk about this cone, it cannot stand alone. We need to have the political support. So, we need to think about the sustainable solid waste management to have a city of an ecosystem which having a balance between the production, consumption, and distribution of waste emissions. And the goal of sustainable solid waste management is to promote the health, well-being, to protect quality and sustainability of the environment, promote efficiency and productivity of the urban economy, and generate employment opportunities. The dimensions of the integrated solid waste management, which is based on the idea of sustainability, is to look at who are the actors who should be involved, how the strategies should be set up and achieved, and what the system elements, the functions, the tasks are. So we have this diagram which we always have to base our designing of the integrated solid waste management on this. In the top you can find the actors, who can be the city council, central government, and NGOs, CBOs, private sector, and donor agencies. In the middle you can find the system, which includes recovery, reuse, any other possibility. And at the end you can find the strategic aspects. These are the actors, the elements, and the strategic aspects which we have to keep in mind when we design any solid waste management system: environmental and political, institutional, social, financial, economic, technical. We have to keep in mind all those aspects. I won't take some time for that, but the focus for my paper, the second part of my paper, was focusing on the micro and small enterprises, the definitions, because these enterprises are making a good job in the field of solid waste, and community-based organizations and NGOs. The paper defines all those actors and describes the role of them in the field of solid waste. And then we give some light on the position of these organizations in Egypt, locations, yes, and what are the factors that contribute to their success, and the factors that hinder their success. This is the second part of my paper, and the conclusions and the recommendations that decision makers should recognize the importance of the involvement of these actors in planning to increase community participation and accountability of local governments. And there are other recommendations regarding the involvement of those actors in solid waste management. I don't want to make it longer than that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that presentation. Some questions, please.